Hey, what's up, YouTube? We're back with another video. This one will be touching on the new player experience because I know there's going to be a lot of new players coming with the Xbox release. So the idea of this video is going to be one loadout with some suggestions here and there for each faction that I find is like a good overall starting point. It might not be the best of the best because obviously you'll unlock and different variations will appeal to your play style. But I find this is a really good starting point, and then you can modify it from there. But also, I'm going to assume that you're taking the advice from my other video where Democratic Detonation is the first warbond that you grab. You're going to notice that I don't necessarily recommend the Eruptor and Crossbow for those factions necessarily as your primary weapon, but I'm mostly coming at it from the perspective of those are not necessarily the easiest weapons to use when you're starting off the game. They can be a bit challenging at times. So starting off, we have the Bug faction. Your armor, it just works in so many different situations as far as survivability, mobility, because you can stim yourself and move very fast with also unlimited stamina for a short period of time. Great versatility. Medium armor has also been buffed so many times that it genuinely does tend to feel better than light armor, especially for a new player. As you get more experience in the game, light armor will tend to be more favored by a lot of players just because the mobility means that you just take less hits and you complete missions faster. But medium armor for the start is extremely good. Some other honorable mentions would be scout armor. Being able to just avoid combat in general is extremely good in Helldivers. So if you tend to be more of a stealthy player, very good to start with. Grenade armor is okay, but just remember you don't get more grenades on resupply. It's only when you die. So if you find you're dying a lot, you'll get more value at it, but the stim's really strong. Keeping your Helldiver alive and the bonus 2 seconds is invaluable. Going into primary weapon for bugs, I tend to recommend the second weapon, technically the first one in the Helldivers Mobilize Warbond. This weapon just has so much knockback. It has great damage. It has a good upgrade path with the full choke, great stability, just super easy to use. And especially if you employ the tactic of reloading after almost every shot, it has a bottomless mag. In quotations, I would do them, but I currently have a cat in my arm. Very strong weapon for bugs. The only enemy that's really going to bother you are like medium pen, like hive guards and stuff like that. But this thing is very good at killing brood commanders, pushing the back, hunters, scavengers, literally everything other than brood commanders when it comes to these smaller enemies. Your pistol, grenade pistol, is fantastic just for spewers and closing bug holes. It actually is quite strong at killing large groups of enemies because it does do a fair bit of damage with the explosion. And you can take out hive guards if you need it. Honorable mentions obviously would be like your Redeemer or the Peacemaker. More so the Peacemaker, honestly. They buffed this a fair bit to actually feel quite good. And I would probably favor it over the Redeemer in most situations if you're just starting out. As far as the grenade goes, I would probably lean most towards frag grenade just because they've given the shrapnel quite a bit of tuning to it. This weapon, if you guys don't know, has a explosion component and then it does shrapnel afterwards. You'll see the bits flying out from the grenade that do bonus damage. Although it's only medium pen, you get 5 of them, and it's very nice when you're trying to destroy as many bug holes as possible. And just an overall shrapnel damage is very useful. Some honorable mentions though would be the high explosive, more damage, higher pen, but you only get 4, and there's a longer fuse. Impact, lower damage, so half damage to the high explosive, but you get the immediacy of blowing up immediately. And also the fire grenades, the incendiaries, very useful nowadays, especially for throwing on a bug breach. So definitely look into which one you would maybe want. I don't think there's any bad option necessarily. The incendiary would be in Steeled Veterans though, just heads up on that. Talking about stratagems, I think the best overall one to aim for when it comes to Illuminate would be the Quasar. The Quasar is fantastic. It's definitely in the early game. I highly recommend aiming for it. Prior to that, you know, you have an autocannon, you have machine gun, you have quite a few options. Even recoil is very strong for heavy enemies, but ultimately a little bit later in the progression, you have the Quasar cannon, which I would start with. Don't sleep on the guard dogs. The guard dogs are fantastic for players that are new to the game and they're struggling with keeping their head on a swivel, the random bug coming up behind you. This will hopefully get it. Also, the AR-23 guard dog is medium pen, so any of those enemies that your shotgun can't necessarily deal with because they don't have enough pen, this thing does fantastic against. As far as the 2 big stratagems that I recommend, the red stratagems, Orbital Napalm Barrage, 100%. If you don't quite have that unlocked, Napalm Barrage is kind of like a more budget version. Honorable mention would be like like gas strike or like any of the big barrages. And then as far as the last one, typically I like to bring my last stratagem as something that might be more like anti-armor or like big enemies, and 500 kg, especially with the eagle upgrade to get 2 uses of it, fantastic. If you don't quite have that unlocked, some honorable mentions would be like precision strike starting off, or airstrike, orbital rail cannon, things of that nature. Turrets, I'm not really mentioning here, but they are extremely good, but they tend to require the upgrades like the turn speed, more ammo, explosive resistance. They get a lot stronger when you grab those upgrades. But if you're looking at them, it would be the machine gun sentries. The rocket sentry is really good if you put it in more of like a protected spot. Autocannon sentry for raw damage. HMG emplacement is really good for defensive missions. Tesla, if you place it in the right spot, this thing can absolutely go crazy. Gas mines are fantastic for throwing at bug breaches. So definitely quite a few honorable mentions. And then as far as your boosters, the most of the ones that you're going to be unlocking in the first warbond is your helipod optimization, vitality enhancement, and then the last one would be stamina enhancement. Make sure you as a team are picking up one of these 3. They're really strong, and even in the super late game, people are still picking these because they're just so good. Probably as far as like which ones I pick in which order, it'd probably be helipod, vitality, then stamina. All right, now on the bot front. Starting off with armor, pretty similar, except for you might feel like you want to maybe move more towards heavy armor or go a little bit stealthier. I find stealth gameplay works really well on the bot front. So some honorable mentions would be the combat technician. This is scout armor, so you can avoid combat with bots quite a bit with this, but I would definitely lean more towards medium and heavy armor on the bot front. Mobility is just less of a concern on bots, just because on average their enemies are not very fast, so you can mostly just outrun. But yeah, I would say I don't think you can go wrong with just continuing to use medium armor most ever. It just works really freaking well. As far as primary weapons go, we're going to go right up to the top with the Liberated Penetrator. You were in this pretty fast against like page 5 or something like that. In the first warbond, you can see that it goes all the way up to a 60 round magazine with the drum. This thing feels great, especially against bots. Go for those eye shots. I was very close to maybe recommending the Diligence, but if I have to like pick one, I would probably prefer like newer players bring medium pen. It just makes the game easier. As you get more advanced in the game, light pen armor weapons become more usable to you because you'll understand where you can and can't shoot a light pen weapon. But as starting off, Liberated Penetrator just feels really good. You get it really early on. It's not to say you can't use the Punisher, and especially for low-level bot missions, you can definitely use this thing. Aim at the eye and you can kill them quite fast, like Devastators that is, or like it's a lot better than I think people really realize. I know it's a shotgun and you're trying to be precise with a shotgun, but Punisher does quite well, and it staggers enemies very reliably when you're shooting at them, so it becomes quite useful. So you definitely can lean on it still if you've been really enjoying it. I'll probably continue to use the grenade pistol, but some honorable mentions obviously would be Peacemaker. You can be quite precise with it. And then if you are going down the route of SEAL veterans, you still have the Senator, which is really good for taking out Hulks if you shoot them a couple times in the eye. Highly recommend. As far as grenade, same kind of thing, but I'd probably angle more for like high explosive unless you need the additional grenade with the frag grenade. High explosive, just 800 damage is a very reliable way to one-shot Devastators. You can use impacts and like throw them at the eye of a Hulk from the front, or try to throw it between the legs and blow up the radiator from behind. That is definitely an option. Thermites are 100% there for both the Bugs factions and bot faction. If you feel like you want to use that, absolutely. More anti-tank. Just the delayed explosion can sometimes get you into some sticky situations versus bots, so keep that in mind. But Thermite, absolutely honorable mention for both Bugs and bots. Going to the stratagems, a little bit harder to plant down on what I'd recommend, because I think there's a bunch of different ways that you can go on the bot faction. There are definitely your more precise oriented choices like anti-material rifle, going for the eyes of Devastators and Hulks. But I want to say like the most diverse option, especially in the very early game, because you can unlock it at a very low level, is autocannon or recoils. Autocannon is more of like, you can use it against a lot more enemies, because you can use it against the tank from the flank. You can use it against a Hulk on the eye or the radiator. You can use it against the radiator of a tank, or gun turrets, or Factory Strider stomachs, or the eye. You can use it versus just regular Devastators with the flak mode or HE. There's lots of different ways you can use it. Unfortunately, you don't get access to a backpack slot as well, but that's also a positive at the same time. You just get so much raw ammo that it feels really nice. But recoils is just better for tanks because it one-shots them in the front. It one-shots Hulks basically anywhere. You can one-shot Factory Striders or two-shot them in the head. It becomes very good for sniping different fabricators, but obviously you're not going to be as confident against like maybe the Devastators, and ammo might be more a concern for you if you're especially not very good at like finding ammo or stick with your team to call it in. So that's where like Quasar becomes really good. It might take an extra shot or two compared to the recoilless, but you get the unlimited ammo at that point. So it's really good for like sniping fabricators and taking on hulks occasionally, which is really nice, but you won't be one-shotting as many enemies like tanks from the front or dealing with factory chargers nearly as fast. So keep that in mind. But what that does open you up to is a backpack. And that's where like shield generator backpack is really nice for the early game on bots, especially if you feel like you're taking too much damage from range. Highly recommend. Obviously, the medium pen guard dog is still good, but it's a little bit more hit and miss on like how good it is because you might not always be in range of enemies to get full use out of it. That being said, I'm going to build it around the autocannon. And with that, I'm going to go with the 380. I find the 380 to be fantastic against those bot drops and just big bases in general. The 500 kg, still fantastic. Airstrike, especially in the early game, fantastic. Precision strike, fantastic. Just kind of depends on like if you have the 500 kg upgrades yet or not. If you do, it's probably the best option by far. And then as far as like ease of use of just like throw it and forget it, just really powerful. If there's a bot drop happening next to you or a big base or something like that, orbital laser is just so good to use in the early game. It does kind of fall off in the late game because you kind of feel like you want more uses of it. But when you're first learning the game, just using a stratagem that is this easy to use, it's just awesome. Some honorable mentions though would be like the HMG emplacement, rocket sentry, autocannon sentry. I would probably avoid using the two like machine gun sentries just because they don't have as much pen and you want to maybe use something a little bit higher pen. Definitely don't really sleep on 110s. They're actually not that bad nowadays, especially against the hulks, especially if they're more the stationary hulk or tanks that are slow moving. Strafing run, never a bad option versus bots, especially if they're walking at you in like straight lines. Decent. And then obviously 110s and even orbital napalm barrage is a strong contender for the bot faction. But for this one, we're going to go with laser. Same thing for the boosters, hell pot optimization, stamina, and vitality with your first three. And then depending on the planet, you have muscle enhancement. If you get that, is great for like snowstorms and like sandstorms or just like muddy planets and stuff like that. And now we're on the Illuminate faction. For the Illuminate faction, I find that precision does really benefit the player quite a bit if you're willing to use it. And the Lure Penetrator is really nice for going for the heads of overseers, the thigh of harvesters, and not necessarily a bad option for like taking out the floating watchers coming towards you and going for the legs of voteless. I believe it's one tapping legs of voteless very reliably, so you can be very ammo efficient. And when you one tap the legs of voteless, they will start crawling at you and they will eventually bleed out and die. But that's fantastic because they're not nearly as threatening when they're crawling at you, so you don't have to waste like the extra shots to take care of them immediately. So highly recommend the Liberated Penetrator here. You definitely can go for something a little bit less accurate like a Punisher or something along those lines, but I just find medium pen to be very useful on the Illuminate faction, especially when your support weapon maybe doesn't have that medium pen that requires. So assuming maybe you don't take it, but let's say you do in this situation, it just kind of helps enhance it. Grenade pistol is fantastic versus the flesh mob. Some other like honorable mentions obviously would be the Peacemaker or Redeemer, going for the leg shots on the voteless or going for chest shots for the overseers. They recently reduced how much damage their chests take, so that's technically the weak point if you have light armor. Don't shoot their arms, shoot their chest. But the grenade pistol just has so much utility in terms of killing ability and then also dealing with their ships. If you shoot inside the ship after you take down a shield, it can one-shot it. As far as grenades, high explosive, frag, and impact are very much your top contenders to start off. Just depends if you want more grenades, more damaging grenades, or instantaneous. Honorable mention obviously would be incendiary grenades for that early game if you go with the sealed veterans, or thermites don't really feel that good on the Illuminate faction unless you are throwing them at Illuminate ships. Just try to throw them on the top. I find that a lot of times if people throw thermites and they like throw them in the wrong spot, they'll just kind of like only like do some damage to the shield. They technically can destroy the Illuminate faction ships if you throw them around the band or around the side or like on top. I find that they one shot pretty reliably, or if you remove the shield first then throw it, that works too. You don't even have to throw it inside basically. As far as stratagems go, honestly, the OG MG43 is probably my favorite overall support weapon for the faction. Deals with voteless really well, deals with overseers really well, boosts the fire rate, deals with flesh mobs really well, deals with interceptors really well, deals with harvesters really well, shooting them in the leg. So it's kind of like the weapon that kind of does everything quite well. Obviously, the stationary reload can be a little challenging for some players, but the second stratagem I'm going to recommend will help you a lot with that, and that is the AR-23 guard dog. This thing has aimbot when it comes to voteless, when it comes to overseers, when it comes to watchers. It just does a really good job of keeping enemies off you when you're trying to go for that reload. So highly, highly, highly recommend. As far as your next stratagem, it would probably be Orbital Napalm Barrage or Eagle Napalm Strike. I recommend you don't really need to double up on both, but they do work very well for the faction and they are quite early game. And then for the last one, some people feel like they need a little bit more help dealing dealing with overseers and voteless, and that's maybe where you would grab like some kind of sentry, probably angled towards like machine gun sentry or Gatling. But if you feel like you're more like trying to deal with ships and deal with the objectives and stuff like that, 120mm barrage, 380, napalm barrage, 500 kg laser, all really good options for dealing with them. HMG emplacement, really strong as long as you don't get sniped off of it by a harvester. And for that leg on the harvester, it deals them extremely well. Highly recommend. But like, let's say for the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna grab like 120mm barrage, and then same kind of thing for before: health bot optimization, stamina enhancement, or vitality. Highly recommend. And then your last one is kind of like, you know, do you need more samples? Do you want the better stims, muscle enhancement for snowstorm or sandstorm, things of that nature. One thing I did not mention, and I meant to: frag grenade does not destroy Illuminate Tesla towers. So I would probably not recommend that unless you're bringing like autocannon to one-shot it or something like that. High explosive grenade and impact do have enough destruction damage to be able to deal with that. Just a quick note there. The G6 cannot, so you got to be very wary of those Tesla towers if that's the case. If not, and you bring like a high explosive, you can just throw it at the base, it'll blow up and destroy the turret. So just heads up on that. Hopefully the video was useful. If you liked the content, please consider leaving a like on the video. Let me know down below, what are you guys excited most for coming with the Xbox Divers update? What stratagems are you using? What would you recommend for new players? It's obviously been a while since I've been a new player, so maybe there's some advice from you guys in the comments down below would help a lot. Consider leaving a sub on the channel for more content. We'll be releasing a lot for the next couple weeks with all the new players coming on in, and hopefully new content that we get alongside the new patch. Much love. Thank you for watching. Bye, everybody. Peace, YouTube.